Okay, hello and welcome back to today's video. Today we are going to be talking about my tracklist analysis and breakdown for the new Taylor Swift album, The Life of A Showgirl. Okay, so I thought I would start out with some important things to note before we get into talking about and discussing the actual track list. So I think that the critical reception from Tortured Poets Department and Red were very similar in that people thought that they needed to have the fat kind of trimmed off of it. They thought that there were too many genres going on, too many different sounds happening, too many different producers. And also think that artists don't need to be unhappy to create something that is deeper meaningful, which Taylor really discovered during the Red era, because she can create good music while being happy. We know this from 1989. And in 1989 was an amazing album, and she was very happy while creating it. So she was also very happy while creating this record. So I think that 1989 will be very similar to this record. And I think something that we also see from 1989 on this album is Depth About Darkness. 1989 is not a dark album at all. It does not have many dark themes on it. It does not cover many sad topics, but it is very deep lyrically. So I think that will carry over to this album as well. Some words that Taylor and Travis have used to describe this album: it is infectiously joyful, banger after banger, it is fun, it is incredible, and it is vibrant. I mean, know that Travis is the biggest blank space stan, so this should be a very good album. I also think that the re-recording of Debut and Reputation will have a very large impact and will be reflected on this album. Some of those similar themes from re-recording. This is also, we know, the first time that she has ever realized the height and the span of her career. So I think that there will be very many literary references on this album, similar to how Rep was very heavily influenced by the Game of Thrones.
Swift created a character. She based it on the public eye's perception of her and then used Game of Thrones to fill in the rest. She told Entertainment Weekly, "These songs were half-based what I was going through, but seeing them through a Game of Thrones filter." So while everyone thought she was having a breakdown, she was actually watching Netflix to study storytelling. "Look What You Made Me Do" is, quote, literally Arya Stark's kill list. King of My Heart was influenced by the relationship between Khal Drogo and Daenerys Targaryen, even making the post-hook drums to evoke the sound of the Dothraki war drums. I Did Something Bad was inspired by the plot where Arya and Sansa Stark conspire to kill Littlefinger. Swift continued, "My entire outlook on storytelling is being shaped by it. The ability to foreshadow stories, to meticulously craft cryptic storylines. She had to go to a fantasy world to find women who'd fought back and won, because reality offered no models for surviving character assassinations."
But I got smarter, I got harder in the nick of time.
Swift bet on innovation, where her producers bet on destroying her biggest album. That's in the next video. Follow it again.
Okay, so now let's get into the actual track list. So we are going to start off with track 1, The Fate of Ophelia. So we know that Ophelia is a character from Hamlet. She is the daughter of Thelonious and the love interest of Hamlet. She was controlled by her father, her brother, and the restraints of the society that they lived in. She had no agency or freedom in her life and was ultimately forced to decide between the fate of her father and her lover Hamlet. But she also loved Hamlet against her father's will, choosing Hamlet's life over her father's. But as time had passed, Hamlet had been very cruel towards her, but she still held on to hope that Hamlet's feelings towards her were real. But after the death of her father, at Hamlet's hand, Ophelia descended into madness. At the end of the story, she falls from a willow branch and drowns in a river, Brook. We can also see the painting that someone had made of this album depicted in the cover of this album. I'll pop that to you on the screen. And also the flowers from the painting look very similar to the flowers that were on the Eras Tour piano. Now, just a coincidence, but we know that with Taylor, absolutely nothing is accidental, and she can hint at things 3 years in advance. So I would not be surprised if she had already had the concept or even the entire song written and she was planning for the Eras Tour. But I think that she may also change the ending of the story of Ophelia to make it a bit happier, just like she did with the story of Romeo and Juliet in Love Story. So there are some very important things that I think we need to note about the fate of Ophelia. One, no one in the play sees the drowning, but it is one of the most significant moments. When she is picking the flowers and descending into her madness in the brook and drowning, she is trying to escape her fate with Hamlet. It's called the fate of Ophelia because she's escaping her fate and ultimately dying because of the madness that she has descended into after her father's death. So those are my thoughts on the fate of Ophelia. I really tried to like smush it all together because I feel like this is one of the more simpler kind of songs that we can theorize about because it is very deliberate. Don't know much, and it's very deliberate with the name The Fate of Ophelia. Okay, the next song we are going to talk about is track 2, Elizabeth Taylor. So Elizabeth Taylor was an actress in the classic Hollywood era of the 50s and 60s. Much like Taylor, the one thing people always had to say about her, no matter how hard she worked or how much charity work she did, was her dating life and her love life. Elizabeth was married 8 times and divorced 7 times, and we also have a little drawback to reputation in this when she says her into this Taylor because Richard Burton was one of Elizabeth's husbands who she was married to and divorced twice. But the media and the public heavily focused and emphasized on her marriages during her life rather than anything, such as her many acting successes and her charitable acts and humanitarian work. But one of the main things I think will be focused on in the song is her violet eyes, which Taylor has already referenced in the jewelry that she put in one of the variants of the CDs that we got with the violet eye necklace. Elizabeth also starred as Cleopatra in Cleopatra, which I wouldn't be surprised if this look right here was inspired by that. Taylor hinted at this and another song on the album when she posted an Instagram story with an opal ring and said, "This is a gift for Elizabeth Taylor, not Taylor Swift." One of Elizabeth's sons commented on his mom's name being used on one of the tracks on the album, which I will read to you. So he said to TMZ that he considers Taylor to be a rare positive role model for young girls, adding that he admired her philanthropy and courage to stand up for what she believes in. So I just thought I would read you that quote. But I also think this will be similar to Clara Bow and draw some depictions of how Taylor and Elizabeth were treated in the media and how everyone saw Taylor as the next big thing. Now let's move on to the next song, Opalite. Now, Opalite is a man-made version of opal, and when you hold it up to light, it turns orange, which is the color of this album. It is also Travis's birthstone, which is something that Taylor clearly referenced on the podcast. Him and Marjorie actually have the same birthstone because they share the same birthday. And Taylor has also said before that when she would be bullied in school, her mom would come pick her up and take her to TJ Maxx, and they would go look at the opal jewelry. But opalite is a man-made glass that is associated with new beginnings, emotional healing, and tranquility. It also glows from within, which is maybe why on the podcast Taylor said Travis is a color enhancer. So I know I didn't have many thoughts on opalite, but I do have a lot of thoughts on father figure. So this might be a stretch, but I think that father figure is about Scott Borchetta. But you have to hear me out first. So we all know that there's a Pinocchio in the back, but everyone thinks that the meaning of it was that she was lying. But I do not think that is the case because it was normal Pinocchio and was not Pinocchio with his nose grown out, which would indicate that to me that she was lying. But since his nose is normal in that, I don't think she was lying about anything. But I think she's using the story of Pinocchio as the framework of the story for her beginning years of her career and her time at Big Machine. So I don't think it will be about the Giuseppe Pinocchio, but the Stromboli. So Pinocchio was sold to Stromboli, who had a traveling puppet show. Stromboli was excited that he had found a living puppet who could perform without strings. But Pinocchio would become the main attraction and star of the show, similar to how Taylor was the main attraction and the biggest artist at Big Machine before she left. But similar to Taylor in the Look What You Made Me Do music video where she is caged, Stromboli did the same thing to Pinocchio because he didn't want Pinocchio using his legs to walk away, which is very similar to me to how Scott Borchetta saw the potential in 14-year-old Taylor and put her under hundreds of NDAs in an extremely controlling record deal where she would walk away with absolutely nothing and have to start completely over from the ground up when she left, which we know is the case because in her letter she says she couldn't keep any of her songs, tour movies, photos, or anything that she created during her time at Big Machine. Because he knew she would be a star, he also knew that she would ultimately walk away, so he had to find a way to control her, putting her under a controlling record contract where she would own nothing. She also says that she had the carrot dangled in front of her for 20 years, so she's had owning her work dangled in front of her and taken away since she started her contract and started producing with Big Machine. But the carrot was what she wanted more than anything, and the carrot was the chance to own her work. So I think this song is going to tell us how she was caged and manipulated by Scott. Now that range is over, we are going to move on to the track 5, Eldest Daughter. So I think Eldest Daughter is going to really cover all of the pressures that come along with being the eldest daughter and all the pressures that Taylor faces from the world to be a good role model for everyone, and how she can't do anything wrong because everyone is watching her, and if she slips up, she will be picked apart until the end of time for it. And this could also be about how she has raised now 2 generations of songwriters, and not only that, but successful songwriters. So Sabrina Carpenter, Gracie Abrams, Olivia Rodrigo, Conan Gray, Maisie Peters, Phoebe Bridgers, and Kelsey Ballerini, just to name a few. So I think this will give us some more about to give some more about what I think this song will be about, I will give some traits of a typical oldest child that may be discussed in the song: responsibility, parentification, and burnout. So to go along with the theory I saw, that all of these songs line up with all of her previous albums, 1989 perfectly aligns with this. And we know that she was incredibly burnt out during the 1989 era, and she had an eating disorder, and it was overall not a good time for her mentally. But I think that we got a glimpse of the intro on the Eras tour, because the coordinating photo is at the Champagne Problems piano, which is where one night she played a melody or something on the piano that we had never heard before, which I'll pop up right here. So tell me if you guys think that that is true in the comments, or if that was just something she got bored and started playing. Track 6, Ruin the Friendship. Okay, so the track 6 on a Taylor album is meant to revive you from the sadness and depression that you will feel from a track 5. So some examples of a track 6 are Shake It Off, You Belong With Me, Mean, and 22. So those are so You Belong With Me is like one of my favorite Taylor songs, so I'm very excited for this. There are bangers and bops, and I expect no less from Ruin the Friendship. But I do think that the song is probably about Blake Lively, because if you don't know the Blake Lively situation, a quick Google search will tell you everything that you need to know. But I also think this is going to focus on a lot of the toxicity that went on their friendship and the things that led the friendship to be ruined. But I've seen a lot of people saying that they think this will be about the friends to lovers pipeline, but I can't see that happening since Taylor and Travis were never friends before they were dating, at least not that we know of. We don't know that they were in contact before they started dating. So now let's talk about track 7, Actually Romantic. I don't have many thoughts on this. I have 3 lines of note. This will be a very fast talk I'll give, but I think it's about Travis, obviously. But I think that this track, or track 12, is where we are going to see the frightening, it's beautiful, it's rapturous, and then she'll say frightening, it's beautiful, it's rapturous, it's actually romantic. So, but this could also, if it's not about Travis, it could be about fame and touring, and how there's a lot of horrible sides, but there's also a beautiful side and a romantic side of it that she loves. The next song is Wishlist, which Taylor has already referenced in the podcast, where she talks about all the things that she's been wanting for a while and this relationship that she's in. So we know from the podcast that getting her master's back was actually at the top of her wish list since she was a teenager. And she's been saving to buy her master's back since around or before the Fearless era. And her discography and all of her songs acted as a tutorial for what Travis was to do when they started dating. So this could be about those 2 things. Obviously, it's going to consist of one of 2 things: her and Travis's love story, or her touring and getting her master's back. So this could be the other side of I don't want just someone who wants my company, or maybe it could be a slow piano ballad because of the Taylor Nation photo where she is singing a surprise song at the piano.
So this is actually something I forgot to mention, but I also think that this could be about how she's actually completed her wish list. She's got the perfect relationship that she's wanted since she was 13, and she's gotten her master's back, which is something that she's wanted since she signed her record contract. So I think it could be about her getting both of the things that were the top of her wish list since she was a teenager.
Now, this is Wood. Okay, so obviously I think the Evermore mic from the Eras tour could be a big Easter egg for this, but there are so many ways this could go, but track 9s are always the best songs in the album. If that's wrong, I do have some other options. I think this will be a dress or a false god 2.0, but if that is wrong, I do have some other options. So I think this could be addressing knocking on wood, like not wanting to jinx something, maybe like the tour or her new relationship, but also something that feels, but also hoping that something that feels right will stay that way and will not turn out to be horrible, or feeling like something is too good to be true and hoping that it stays that way. But this could also be referencing Natalie Wood, who began working at the age of 4, starting in Miracle on 34th Street. She went on to be in Rebel Without a Cause, starring the James Dean Daydream. From Style. She was also in West Side Story, The Great Race, and Gypsy. So there are definitely some things from that tie into Taylor's life. Or this could be about Woodvale, Folklore and Evermore's Lost Triplet. But this is definitely a reach, which could be why there's a mic on the Eras tour named Wood. But this is also thought of as an alternative title to Evermore, but was ultimately scrapped. And then we go back to the Pinocchio theory, which I'll insert in the TikTok. I got that theory from on the screen.
think I know exactly what father figure is going to be about. I think the Pinocchio is the biggest Easter egg Taylor has given us for this entire era. I think this entire album is going to kind of use the story of Pinocchio as a framework to tell this narrative. I think she relates to it so heavily. I don't think Taylor's father figure song is going to be about the Giuseppe to Pinocchio. I think it's going to be about Stromboli. Listen to this and let your mind be blown. Pinocchio was sold to Stromboli, who had a traveling puppet show. Stromboli was ecstatic to see Pinocchio was a living puppet who could perform without strings. Stromboli made Pinocchio the star of his show, the main attraction. But he also caged Pinocchio because he was afraid that he would use his legs to walk away. He was afraid he would escape. Does that sound familiar? To the man who saw the potential, the talent, the stardom in young Taylor Swift. Perhaps who thought she looked like the next Claire Bow, the next Stevie Nicks, next new shiny thing. He knew she'd be a star. But he also knew she would eventually walk away if he did not cage her. You caged me and then you called me crazy. Taylor has talked a lot about the fact that she didn't have a lot of control when she was at her label Big Machine. She was caged, even when she was there. And in her letter, she told us that the carrot was dangled in front of her for 20 years. The carrot being the thing she wanted the most, the chance to own her own music. I think this is going to be a song that tells us even more about that she was caged, she was manipulated, she was coerced. This carrot was dangled in front of her and kept her going, kept her hopeful, but ultimately she never got her freedom until she was able to do it herself, after breaking free of the cage and walking away without her music. Obviously, this is just a prediction, but I think it's a pretty good one. If you have any other thoughts, I would love to hear yours. And I've made a little loose prediction for every song in the album, so I'll be posting that later today if you're interested. I cannot wait.
But I think that if father figure is not about Pinocchio, then this could be, because we know that Pinocchio is made of wood. Okay, on to track 10, Cancel. This is the one that I am definitely most curious to hear on release day. But I think that this could also go with the record deal ending with Big Machine, or the selling of her masters, but also probably the Kimye scandal from 2016. But we also know that Travis loves it, says it's a banger, and he's the world's biggest blank space stan. So that definitely makes me excited to hear it, because Blank Space is one of my favorite 1989 songs. My favorite from 1989 are Is It Over Now, I Wish You Would, and Blank Space. But I do think this song is kind of going to give more insight into 2016 and the Kimye scandal. That ends up what it is being about, and also sonically being more aligned with Reputation. After this album releases, when people search Taylor Swift Cancel, the lyrics for this song will pop up rather than the 2016 scandal. Similar to how when you search Disney Frozen or Disney on Ice, the kids movie and kids ice skating show pops up rather than Walt Disney being cryogenically frozen on ice. Track 11, Honey. So there are two things that I immediately thought of when I heard this. Honey Honey from Mamma Mia and Sweet Like Honey from Karma. So this could be about how life is sweet like honey, and meaning it's good. And also note that Karma from Midnight's is also track 11. So this could be another parallel between her albums. Similar to how Hits Different is the last track on Midnight's, and it ends with Have They Come to Take Me Away. And Tortured Poet starts with I was supposed to be sent away, but they forgot to come and get me. This could be the Karma parallel of how she doesn't stoop to anyone's level, because life is sweet like honey, it's sweet, it's good, and everyone who has ever wronged her living the best life right now, and she just lets nature do its thing when it comes to their downfall, and she doesn't do anything because karma is on her side, because she's a good person. And I also think there's just saying like honey attracts more mosquitoes than vinegar, which means that if you're good and sweet like honey, you'll get what you want from life, but if you're a horrible bitter person, you're not going to get anything from life. You're going to get horrible things from life, which is how Taylor deals with people who wrong her. She keeps her side of the street clean, does nothing back or in spite of people, and then we get to watch their downfall. So moving on to track 12, the title track, The Life of a Showgirl, featuring Sabrina Carpenter. If there's any songs that we're going to get a music video, I think it's this one. And if we don't see the CD variant names and actually Romantic, this is where it will be in, because I feel like that kind of describes Life of a Showgirl. It's beautiful, it's rapturous, it's frightening, and I don't, Sweat and Vanilla Perfume to me is very out of place, but whatever. But I also think this is where we will hear the roller coaster that Taylor referenced when she brought out Sabrina on the Eras Tour. This is a song I have the least predictions for, since I don't really know what to expect from it, because the two of them, they're like Sabrina and Taylor, they have just two completely different writing styles. Taylor is very poetic and Sabrina is very just tongue-in-cheek. But this was written during the Australian leg of the Eras Tour, because we know that she created it entirely on tour, so that means her and Sabrina would have written it in Australia, and then they would have flown to Sweden with Max Martin and Shellback and recorded it. But thank you guys so much for watching this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. I will see you guys on Wednesday. Bye!